Good afternoon. You're very welcome to this afternoon session, Social Value, Inclusive Growth and Inward Investment, how to maximise their impact for communities, residents and businesses. Delighted to welcome a esteemed group of panel members here. They've been working hard and preparing for today, and they're going to introduce themselves to you and go straight into their brief slide decks. So please let me call up first Joanna Dahlgren and Jonathan Martin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonathan Martin, Director of Inward Investment at Waltham Forest Council. My new title as of this month is Director of Investor Partnerships, and I'd like to speak with you about what we're doing in the borough, which we believe is innovative. My partner in crime is Joanna Dahlgren, and I'll let her introduce herself. May I have the next slide, please? May I have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So we thought it would be really interesting to sort of start talking to you, particularly around where we are in the borough, around innovation and what that means to us as an organisation. We've been working quite recently as a tri-borough partnership in the Upper Lee Valley, and you can see from this first slide that there are a number of core objectives we want to achieve out of that partnership, particularly around the strategic location and how we can effect more embedded partnership working, and that will be along the Upper Lee Valley, which is some 3,800 hectares of land. It's working alongside Haringey and Enfield, and we've engaged in a collaborative partnership working agreement through a memorandum of understanding to drive forward new inclusive growth and investment. There's an urban regeneration and development imperative to this, where we're looking to potentially deliver over 15,000 new jobs and 20,000 new homes, really transforming the economic landscape. And within that, clearly social value is key and critical to that. But we want to also focus on sort of green and blue infrastructure improvements that we can see coming forward as well. And that's something that is really quite key for us. So that's something that will start to touch on the waterways and the green spaces and parks and so forth. Growth objectives, again, are around attracting new investors, what we can do to make sure we support SMEs and fostering that public-private partnership. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Here's a graphic of the context of what we're talking about in terms of the Upper Lee Valley, which you can see on the right-hand side of the slide. I've touched on that sort of strategic site development, particularly in the Upper Lee Valley area, and we'll be looking at how we can really deal with the sort of growth sectors, particularly around strategies to improve manufacturing, green technology, and the creative industries to sort of fuel growth, obviously couched within that wider social value landscape, and that's something we'll be working to embed as we progress into stage 2 of this partnership. In terms of investor engagement, it's key for us. We want to make sure that we can engage all of our high value, significant investors, but given the number of SMEs in the boroughs, we've got to make sure we can get that representative engagement from them as well. And in order to do so, we're relying on our regional partnerships, which includes a whole tier of engaged partners that can really start to amplify that local message and impact. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So that effectively sort of brings us on to that strategic growth alignment. In order for it to be coherent, we want to make sure that we align with the London Growth Plan and the Industrial Strategy 2025 to foster those employment and skills, which is obviously critical for our residents and that sort of community wealth building. Productivity and collaboration is absolutely key for us, and we've been working significantly with the Productivity Institute based out of Manchester in terms of how we can look to boost economic output and really start to build that regional resilience. Alongside that, we've got to make sure no one's left behind, so we're looking at how we can forward that sort of inclusive growth and infrastructure and make sure that that's something that's place-based and embedded within our local plans, which will effectively guide the way forward in terms of how we engage around our transportation, our infrastructure, our connectivity, and what that means for long-term stewardship. And I think that's absolutely key in terms of, again, these strategic partnerships that we have. The UK Innovation Corridor's role is significant as one of our key strategic partners, as is Local London, London and Partners, Opportunity London, the GLA, obviously, and we are working with all of our partners to really embed that sort of strength of partnership. May I have the next slide, please? This final slide gives you a touch of what we're looking at in the Upper Lee Valley. It's our Black Horse Lane housing zone, and as you can see on this graphic, it shows a clear area of investment and development. There were meant to be originally only 2,500 homes and 1,500 jobs, but now what we have is effectively a scheme that's delivered over 4,000 jobs, 4,000 homes, I beg your pardon, and 2,000 jobs. And it's something we're going to go on to talk about in terms of what that means working with our investors and our developers in order to deliver that social value. And for that journey, I can hand over to my colleague, Joanna, who can talk you through where we are. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm Joanna Dahlgren. I'm the head of social value and social return on investment in Waltham Forest. So let's reflect on our social value journey. We have embarked on this journey back in 2019. Social value was present, but it was passive. Mandatory 10% weighting existed, but it wasn't monitored or enforced. It was a little bit of a tick box exercise. £47,000 of worth of social value in kind of the value of the benefits was delivered by our supply chain in the first year. That's pretty embarrassing figure, if you ask me. At the end of the 2020, the social value dedicated function was established under the return on investment department. And by 2021, we began embedding social value into procurement, focusing on major contracts, predominantly in the construction sector. In that year, our supply chain has delivered over £7 million worth of societal benefits in Waltham Forest. We have also published our first social value policy, setting a really clear direction and commitment. Later that year, the council further invested in a dedicated social value team. In 2022, we expanded our scope and embedded social value into commissioning, and also included professional services and ICT contracts. But the approach remains still output focused. Social value was considered at the procurement and construction stage, yet still largely remain transactional. In the later years, we really reinforce our approach through monitor consistent reporting, transparent data publication, and a strong emphasis on collaboration and strategic partnership. And social value has really become embedded across the entire project life cycle, laying a really strong foundation for more intentional, strategic, and transparent model. Over the time, we've evolved into an outcome and impact-led approach. Our local needs analysis is driven by very robust data and informed by commercial insight. Social value is now integrated at every stage, from strategy and planning to delivery and evaluation, with very clear reporting and open publication. It's no longer just about doing good. It's about doing good well and being able to prove it. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Right, so our transformation is guided by 4 core principles. And I think I'm going to start from the end. So we focus on value-driven interventions. We look beyond costs. What is the total value delivered for the public money spent? That includes social, environmental, and economic returns. It's about maximizing every pound, but really making sure that every single pound unlocks crucial opportunities for our people, places, and planets. We've also very impact and outcome led. So we measure success by change, not just by activity. I suppose we shifted from asking ourselves what we're trying to deliver to what change are we trying to achieve, whether it's a job, skills, or carbon reduction. We track outcomes, not just outputs. We ensure that every single intervention that is being delivered by our suppliers is place-based and based on needs. So we focus on real ecosystem. Where is the impact being generated and felt is really important. And that principles ensures value circulates within our borough strengthening and adding value to local resilience. But I suppose the most important principle for us is people-centric. We start with the community, and every investment asks whose needs are we truly serving and whose lives are we trying to change. And that really ensures our work is rooted in lived experience and local priorities. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Great. So the Social Investment Fund. The Social Investment Fund has been designed and developed as a response to a growing financial pressure on for the local government and local authorities, but also to transform fragmented and ad hoc giving into very unified strategic approach to social investment. It is not just a fund, it's a concept, and I like to say it's a vehicle for change and a platform collaboration. So in the heart of the CIF and at its core is a bold response to the challenges of siloed funding and disconnected initiatives. It offers a transparent outcomes-led model that commissions projects aligned with local priorities, such as employment, skills, housing, and health. But it's really designed to deliver a measurable impact where it matters the most. But the CIF is more than just a mechanism. It's a movement. It brings together the public sector, private sector, voluntary sector, educational providers, and communities in genuine partnerships, a shared space for innovation, co-creation, and collective action. I think it's important to note that the CIF harnesses both financial and non-financial contributions, from pro bono services, volunteering, in-kind support, through to match funding, proportion of Section 106 and SEAL, and contributions through the social value avenue. But it amplifies value, it unlocks resources and enables systemic change, especially for the marginalized and high-need group. And this is our response to move from intent to impact. From isolated efforts to integrated solution. The CIF also promotes and transforms the transactional giving to transformational sustainable investment that delivers lasting change. It is the Council commitment to doing things differently, to championing radical collaboration and unlocking shared values, but more importantly, creating space for innovation. And it's not just about funding, it's about forging meaningful, genuine, long-term partnerships, aligning purpose and enabling systemic change. But more importantly, is about doing it together. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So I want to talk to you today about a case study. I think social value is only really good if it delivers this long-lasting positive impact, not when it's only a commitment. We earlier this year has commissioned a pilot project, employment pathway for our residents in temporary accommodation. If you are working in the local government space or for local authority, you are most definitely aware with the financial pressure that local government face and the housing crisis. So in Waltham Forest, we thought, well, how do we make the change? How do we make sure that the people that are very vulnerable and face multiple barriers, they can access opportunities and not just move from one accommodation to another? So the idea of this employment pilot was born. And this is our first project designed and commissioned through the Social Investment Fund. It's been designed specifically for residents in temporary housing, to take them on an employment journey, to really move them from relying on a lot of different type of benefits to more independent living. This project has been now in motion for about 6 months. It has in kind of initially committed to engage with 60 families and move 40% of the participants into sustainable employment, achieving also a sustainment rate. Today, this initiative has delivered 26 jobs, paying London living wage or above. That's over £500,000 injected into the local economy, not even looking at all the other impacts, such as saving for NHS, saving for DWP, or indeed for the local council. It's been delivered through a local small business. And it's not just about employment. The program is about dignity, is about stability and opportunity for our most vulnerable residents. In the heart of this program, it's this radical collaboration, engaging a wide range of stakeholders, the council teams, suppliers, charities, and community groups. That really demonstrate inclusive commissioning and agile delivery. So this is our proof of concept for how strategic social value can transform lives, and it's a blueprint for a future innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanna and Jonathan. Now we're going to go across to Michael McLaughlin. Michael is Group Social Value Manager in LHC Procurement. Michael.
Thank you very much, John. So yes, I'm Michael, the Group Social Value Manager at LHC Procurement Group. We're a not-for-profit nationwide public sector procurement framework provider. I suppose today what I want to do is to give some insights into the good practice that we see across the sector, and some of the themes really that Joanna and Jonathan have pulled out already, and they're delivering that impact. And I think for me, I worked within the social housing sector with and for housing associations and local authorities for over 20 years. And I suppose, can we change slide, please? One of the key things that I think when we think about impact and place-based impact, we often use the term social value. Now, social value means different things to different people. And I think the challenge of maximising the impact that we can deliver is often kind of goes back to the definition. Do we have a shared definition? Are we clear? When we think about social value from our perspective, often we hear it around procurement. So social value has been delivered as part of public procurement. Now, as the guys have already shown, social value is much more than that, and it's delivered in a huge kind of holistic sense. But actually, if you're defining that through procurement, actually that has a certain lens on that. Now, particularly when you're looking at public sector clients and public sector suppliers to the public sector, it's really key that we align what delivery is to ensure that we maximise it. But also, then if we're looking for social value to drive investment opportunities or funding opportunities, actually, again, it's really clear that we have to have a defined view of that. And I think what we often go back to is the Social Value International definition about social value being a measurement of the work we do, the services we deliver, and the impact it has on people and communities. It has to be benefits that are seen through social, economic and economic impact. So it's that wider sense of value that's delivered. I think for the work that we do at LHC PG, that we see long-term impact that's driven across public sector construction in a kind of holistic sense. And I say holistic because often if we think about social value through procurement, often we see people looking at the UK government for the legislation and the documentation and guidance on that. And they define social value as being the additional benefits that can be driven through public sector procurement. And I don't think that goes far enough. Actually, the core delivery of the work we do, the core delivery of that, the services, the programs you deliver, actually has to have the impact it has on people and communities at the heart of it. And I think that is really key. So often we would talk to clients and suppliers about is about having an early engagement around social value. What's your expectation? What's your definition? But I think we think about that in a wider sense today. Think about how do we ensure that funders and investors are part of that conversation. So again, we're very clear about the definition of social value. And I think for us, and it's been spoken about already, that social value is about impact. It's about long-term transformational change that you can create at place. It's not about box ticking. It's not about winning contracts or getting investment. It's about maximising the benefits you can deliver for the people in the place that you work. Can you change slide, please? Thank you. Now, I think that this is even more pronounced in the public sector. So commercial organisations will measure the success of a programme or a project or a procurement activity as being how profitable it was at the end of the day. But actually, when we think about the public sector, we are delivering houses, schools, hospitals. We're not going to measure how successful that is through how much profit it creates, because 100 houses, they're not built to create profit. They're built to meet the needs of local people. And I think that's, as a public sector, we're hugely mission driven. So often we hear about social value and the key things about why do we deliver social value. We do that because we might have a moral imperative to do that. And I think that's very much where the public sector are. We do it because there's legislation, and again, very much aimed at public sector. But we also do it because it can improve our funding opportunities. And again, that's a fairly holistic view. But for the public sector, when we think about how do we bring in that investment, how do we articulate the wider value of what we do if we're not articulating that based on how much money we're going to create? And it has to be about that wider value, that wider impact that we can create for people and places. I think it's important that we do that, and again, that we align our investment strategies, our procurement strategies, our retrofitting strategies around the wider impact that can create to people, to places, to the environment and the economy. And that again has investment at the core of it. So really important that we think about the impact that we create, the business case that we are making for any project, any procurement, or any kind of wider strategies as being about more than just how much money it's creating. Has to think about how we measure the impact on people and places. Can you change slide, please? Sorry. So, and again, we spoke about that social value is not about box ticking. It's not about outputs. It's about the impact that it has on people and places. And for me, it's about not just how we deliver that impact, but how we measure that impact. If we can have a very consistent approach to measuring that impact, then we can use that as that early engagement with investors, with clients and suppliers, to ensure that we have that consistent approach. We're measuring the things that matter. And I think it's really key that we're not saying, we're delivering 100 jobs. 100 jobs is a value of X to the wider economy. What we're saying is, what's the long-term change to people and places created by those 100 jobs? So really important that we think about that. I think we think about the long-term change rather than just how can we bring in this investment. I think it's a really interesting thought about investment for this one. Often we think about social value being something that is forecast, but actually when we want to create investment to a place, we need to be articulating value in advance to show them, actually, here's what we've created. Now, if we're saying kind of very binary and transactional numbers, I don't think it gives that holistic business case. So we have to think about the impact it has on people and places. If we consider long-term impact, we consider that impact, the well-being uplift created by 100 houses, 100 jobs, or 100 people receiving new skills. What impact has that had on people? Has that brought them, the people in that community? Has it improved public health? Has it improved employability rates? Essentially, what's the wider impact that has to society and community? The more people who are improving their well-being, the more people that are closer to the job market. We know that statistically they use less NHS services, less DWP. So there is that wider social value created, savings to the Treasury. But also, when we think about if it's organisations delivering that impact or articulating that impact, actually it has a huge impact on how they work. I think Joanna alluded to that. It's not just about doing well, it's about doing good. And I think that's an interesting concept, that organisations who deliver social value, who deliver long-term change, actually work better. They're more efficient statistically, and economically, they deliver better outcomes. So rather than thinking about what's the outputs that we can create through a particular project or a particular procurement exercise, it's about thinking about how can we ensure that every decision we make has long-term impact embedded? Are we forecasting? Are we tracking? Are we measuring? Are we reporting? When we do that and we can articulate that in a very consistent manner, and we can share that across clients, suppliers and investors to ensure that not only are we doing good things, but we are able to confidently articulate it and use it to benefit us long term, to get more money in, to ensure that there's more investment for doing good things. There's more houses, there's more schools, there's more hospitals, and then we're creating more outputs, more outcomes, and longer term impact. Can you move slide, please? Thank you. I suppose we think about, mentioned that, how do we align the clients and suppliers? And I think there's a couple of key things that we see being done really well and really simply, that shows whether we are delivering social value or speaking about it as a tick box exercise. How do we know that the social value someone's considering or aiming for is realistic? How is social value meaningful? And I think that, does it align with local strategy? So Joanna and Jonathan spoke about that really well. And actually, all impact has to meet the needs of local people. If you're delivering 10,000 jobs, but you're working in an area that is populated predominantly by people over the age of 65, maybe that's not the social value you should be aiming to deliver. You should be meeting the needs of local people to ensure that you're delivering the most maximised long-term impact, using the investment that you're putting in to deliver that social value to maximise that investment long-term. Can it realistically be delivered? Often what we see is that social value through procurement is delivered by the suppliers in that contract. How sure are you that they can deliver that long term? Do they have a kind of experience of doing that? Have you got that evidence? And I think that's hugely important. And again, the last thing, and it kind of speaks to the points I've made before, can it be measured and managed? Have we got a consistent approach to social value reporting? Have we got a consistent approach to evidence? And I think that is hugely important, because that's the only way, if we can start to speak about these things in a consistent and aligned manner, that we can be robust. And actually, when we have that business case, if we want social value to be considered as bigger value as monetary progress, then unless we can evidence it and be assured about the delivery of it, that we can, like, balance sheets and finances, then we're not doing ourselves justice. So really important that it can be measured and reported on. Last slide, please. I think the last point I really wanted to make was that social value isn't delivered by any one party within a community or within a contract. Actually, it's delivered, as we've spoken about in terms of Jonathan and Joanna's, about partnership approach. I think for me, that's really important. The public sector, yes, the public sector clients, so that could be a local authority, a health board, housing association. They want to meet the needs of local people. Excellent. But actually, the suppliers are often the people who have been tasked with delivering social value in the contract, in community benefit clauses. So it's really important that we have that collaboration. But also, suppliers will work closely with other community partners, other that might be neighbouring communities, it might be other people delivering value in that area. So again, really important that we have that consistency of approach. And in terms of the kind of procurement aspect of it, actually, we have that buying power and we have that kind of consistent and collaborative approach, we can maximise the impact that can be created through good procurement activities. So it's really important that we use common language, we use common metrics, and we are able to clearly articulate the value of what we do. Essentially, for me, that's how we're going to access more funding, access more impact, and deliver that in a long-term sense. So we're ensuring that all local investment decisions are considering social value and delivering more long-term social impact. Really, excited to hear Nina's presentation. Again, a very much a place-based approach to social value delivery, and I think it's something that for us in terms of the public sector, it's very much where we see the way we'll maximise social investment and social value delivery. Thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you, Michael. And moving northwards down from Glasgow, we're going to go to Nina Howell from Salford City Council. Nina. We're just looking at fixing that, Nina. We're having some technical difficulties. Hopefully, if 63 people on this session can hear us, we'll be with you shortly. We're just waiting for Nina in relation to some technical problems. One moment, bear with us, and we'll come to you shortly. Okay, maybe we'll take any Q&As. We've had three tremendous presentations there from Joanne, Jonathan and Michael. Any questions, particularly if you're able to put them in the chat, we'll try and either direct them to a specific recipient, or we'll put them across through my chairmanship to one of the colleagues we've heard. As we've already said, we're working on Nina's presentation in relation to a technical problem, and if that gets cured, we'll bring Nina to you as soon as possible. So please feel free to raise your questions in the chat, and we'll see if we can direct them. Michael, let me start maybe with one for you from me, please. I was very interested. My role here at Birmingham City Council, a relatively new role as Director Commercial and Procurement. Very interested, and I'm very supportive in your view. It's not about profit. Can you expand a bit more in relation to how do we really resonate with people the importance of social value around non-financial returns and benefits?
Absolutely. I think, again, it's about ensuring that we are measuring what matters to local people. Now, we often hear associated with contracts, there'll be £10 million of social value. And I think what we need to do is break that down to do that bit about impact and think about what is the local need. Now, that might be very specific to very different communities, and you'll know that yourself across Birmingham. Even within a local authority, there'll be certain communities that will be, there might be high levels of unemployment or high levels of homelessness, or it might be the rural communities where there's maybe health centre or schooling issues, and actually making sure that we are maximising the impact in those areas. So we are speaking to the needs of people, and I think that is hugely important. We often think about it in a local sense, and I think that's important, but actually, what drives huge amount of interest is where we're clearly meeting the needs of people. I think it's, for me, the most important part of that. The public sector where they are kind of community anchor institutions, are more likely to know their residents, tenants, clients, patients. It's really important that we use that community engagement they've got, use the available data and knowledge and partnerships you've got to make sure. And I suppose, yes, how do we do that? We review the information, the data. We make sure that as part of all contracts, we're building in social value as a KPI so that we're tracking the delivery of that every bit as much as importance as cost, quality, timescales. So it's really important we have social value delivery that we're measuring as part of projects and part of contracts. So at the end of that, what we are saying is that X amount of social value is actually inherent in the delivery of these projects. It's not an add-on. And I think for me, that's why public sector do it really well, because they are delivering these projects, they're delivering schools, delivering houses to meet the needs of local people. So there's that. That's why I said at the start is that often I think we've got that social values, the additional benefits that can be delivered, but actually it's not. It's the core delivery of those houses, those schools, and I think that for me is really key. So it's important that we reflect that again to the people, to the communities, to the investors, to the boards. This is very much part of that kind of overall delivery of the work that we are doing.
Thanks, Michael. Lovely. Emma Drake raises a question. Maybe I'll direct it to Joanna in the first instance, and then Jonathan, if you want to come in, please do. Emma's very interested in how you monitor the social value, and is there any clawback or similar if social value isn't delivered as has been agreed?
Hi, I hope you can all hear me. Sorry.
We can, Joanna. Yeah, you're fine.
I've got the camera working. Sorry, I'm not a techie person.
That's okay.
So we have published the second social value policy just last month, actually. We used a social value portal to monitor, track, and report on the on the supplier's performance. So we don't really get into a kind of a situation where there's no social value deliver and half of the contract has passed. We very engage with the suppliers, and that engagement start at the time of the contract inception. So we very actively working with our supply chain, not just to kind of performance manage, but to make sure that they do have the right tools and that they connected with our network of providers, and they can already join and add value to established and then live provisions. So I like to think that our function really kind of joined the dots. If the social value isn't delivered, or some of the commitments are not being delivered, there's always, we were very open to have a conversation, and this is our this is the initial approach. We're having a conversation with suppliers to see what's stopping them delivering the respective intervention or activity. Is there anything we can do? Is there anything we can help with supporting or connecting them with other organizations? And then, as you probably gathered throughout my presentation, we're massive on collaboration. So we really like to bring our suppliers together. In terms of the kind of the penalties or the the consequences for not delivering social value, we do have and have introduced the first time this year in our new social value policy remedies for not delivering the social value commitments. In my 5 years in leading on this piece of work and managing the function in the council, we haven't had the situation where we had to kind of use any remedies. And before, we had a social value specific remedy strategy, the contract remedies would apply. So, and I think that's due to the fact that we really are we're making sure that we support the suppliers in kind of delivering their commitment, and we're very embedded with the contracts at the kind of the execution stage.
Lovely, thank you, Joanna. Just going back, we hope to bring you Nina now. Nina Howell, are you there, Nina?
I am. Can you hear me
Lovely,
okay?
welcome.
Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
there's no pressure now. You were put on the
Yeah.
spot a bit there with technical gremlins, but good to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. So hi everyone, afternoon. I'm Nina. I work in the Regen team at Salford City Council and I lead our social value and impact programme. If we can just move on to that first slide, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Salford and where we are. We've got a really strong story around growth over the past decade or so, and we're well on track to deliver our vision of 40,000 new jobs and 40,000 new homes by 2040. But as you can see, if we just move to the next slide, despite this great growth trajectory, away from kind of those growth centre locations, we've still got some really persistent challenges in Salford around health inequalities. We've got too many children living in poverty and some residents further away from the job market than we'd like. So as you'll see on the next slide, whilst we've got really kind of ambitious plans as a council in our corporate plan to solve some of those really entrenched and tricky issues, social value and impact is one of the ways that businesses and our partner organisations in communities can support us on our journey around inclusive growth. There's a little bit of detail on the next slide around good growth, which is a key priority for us in terms of that inward investment, attracting socially and environmentally conscious investors and businesses to Salford is something that's really high on our agenda. Delivering our skills and work strategy for the city to make sure that our residents have got the skills that they need, but also the opportunities to really access good, high quality work. Maximising social value, both as we've talked about through procurement, but also through our planning policy, which mandates that major developments need to submit a social value strategy. Also focusing on inclusive recruitment with our partners to make sure that those underrepresented groups who might be a little bit further away from the jobs market are getting those opportunities that are really key for them. So just moving on to the next slide. In our inclusive green economy strategy, we really want to build local community wealth and work with partners who'll help us grow the social economy and support our fabulous third sector, who are in Salford are led by Salford CVS, who are doing great things in engaging local communities. Given that public sector budgets are still under immense pressure and demand, our focuses on making the most of all the available levers that we've got to deliver social value. So if we just pop onto the next slide, some of the key things we've got available to us are through procurement and really maximising our own spending power to create positive outcomes for local people. Using that planning policy that we've got to work with developers and contractors to ensure that we build beyond bricks and mortar to support local skills development, improve public spaces, and do some of those good things that we've talked about on the panel already. Our own corporate impact as an organisation, we really want to set an example. We've done a rough estimate at the moment of around 60 million through our own employment, skills and work programmes and volunteering efforts that we're having on the wider community, because we want to show that, you know, we're in this too. We want to make a real difference to our local communities. And in terms of that kind of business community and inward investment, you know, it's really important that we influence our wider business community and collaborate with other local anchor partners to maximise that positive change for our residents and communities. So just on to the next slide. The Salford Way is our story, our journey of how we deliver good growth for Salford people. We want to grow that inclusive and green economy, and we see social value and impact as a key part of creating that community wealth. And what we're doing as a council is investing both the time and resources to ensure that we can unlock those opportunities for local people. We do that, as other panelists have said, by working in collaboration with others, with the private, public and third sector, to shape that more inclusive economy. And we're putting in place the policy and the practice, and we've got upcoming a couple of things coming forward, which includes a directory of social value opportunities that businesses can support us with, which includes measures for measuring and monitoring social value, but actually links those to the real practical opportunities to work with Salford organisations on the ground to do the doing. We've also going to be launching a set of town centre guides for developers, which we've developed recently with Savills and Salford CVS to help us guide regeneration activity in towns of Eccles, Swinton and Pendleton. So what we really want to do is put in place the policy, the practice, but also that supportive guidance where we're all working together to really make a difference to those communities. And I know we're short on time now. Apologies for those technical difficulties. I can hand back to John.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Nina. We have a good few questions coming in. So maybe we'll stick with you, Nina, for a moment. Emily Blake asks, how would you suggest businesses collaborate with multiple charities to strategically tackle some of those social issues you mentioned in your presentation? Is there a benefit, for example, to businesses working with multiple charities to create coalition projects?
Thanks, John. So in Salford, we have got a Salford Social Value Alliance, which brings together third sector partners and businesses. So that's a space where businesses can talk to multiple charities at one time to understand what they need, what local organisations need, and work together. So that's how I would approach it in Salford. Having that kind of space locally to understand hyperlocal issues and tackle them together is how we would kind of work on that. And it might not be the same in every area, but that would be our kind of key avenue in for businesses.
Lovely, thank you. And maybe the next question we'll bring Jonathan in for. Lara Poole asks, does the panel have any examples of how social value has been used to enable inward investment or support local businesses to grow? It's up there on the screen for you all. Jonathan.
Thanks very much, John. One of the things we've been looking at in terms of how we can make social value more coherent within inward investment is the screen that I showed you in my presentation, particularly around Black Horse Lane. And what you find there is an absolute multiplicity of different users, residents, businesses, investors, developers, hard landscaping, public landscaping, as well as natural capital in terms of blue and green space. And we've got some international houses that have invested into that area. What we have found is through that place-based investment, with the social value that delivers on some of those training regimes, apprenticeships, jobs and skills, that starts to create a momentum around an area. So for example, Black Horse Lane and the slide that I showed you, back in 2008 to 2012 or so looks nothing as it does now. It was all around the collaborative working of all the partners in terms of how they could see the difference in change once investment started to come into the area. And it was important to listen to our residents on that very point. So what we've learned is there's a co-creation that's required. There's got to be a strong commitment from the partners, the investors that want to see that happen. Where we have, for example, investors that are looking for build-to-rent schemes and delivering social value, their end users can leave with their feet at any time if they're not happy with the public realm, the transportation, the connectivity and the amenities. What that leads to with all of the different variety of investors and developers and the settled community that's already there is a coherent understanding of what's required to make a place successful. So we've seen a number of examples of how that's delivered a stronger, more compelling reason to invest. We take investor tours around these areas, and some of the soft power of working together with partners really does start to anchor that social value impact, as has been touched on by my colleagues. And that actually encourages more investors to want to invest in those areas because they become more valuable in terms of that place-based investment and also that community wealth building. So that would be the general example I would answer and provide for that specific question. But if anyone wants more detail, happy to share that given time. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Jonathan. And we're going to take 3 more questions. We're close on time, I'm afraid. So if I could ask panel to be as succinct as you possibly can. We're going to go to Joanna next. This is a question from Marlene Botang. Does the social investment funds include liquidated damages, LIDs, for non-delivery of social value? If not, how are the liquidated damage income used?
Thank you, John. The Social Investment Fund is a vehicle for change, is a platform for, to promote radical collaboration. The CIF doesn't actually include liquidation damages from non-delivery of social value, but our new social value policy does. As I mentioned previously, we do have a remedies section incorporated in the new policy, and then the potential income from this future damages will go into the social investment funds, which will then commission out the project and initiative that can not just support the council missions, but also contribute to solving a really complex societal issues on the local level. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Joanna. And maybe Michael, we'll go to you, second to last question, and then our last question we'll direct to Nina. But this question here from Alex Francis: what is the best way for suppliers to embed commitments in contracts when they hold large number of contracts with the same local authority?
Great question. I was kind of hoping that would be asked to me. I think the best way to do that is to have a strategic, almost a social value strategy. I think if we look at social value delivered per contract, I don't think it helps us maximise that long-term impact. If we can work with a local authority to best understand what the needs are, I think both Waltham Forest and Salford have articulated that today. They've got a very clear view on what the needs are, what they're trying to do. So actually ensuring that you're delivering to meet those needs. But if you're working strategically with them as a strategic partner almost, then it's in your interest to ensure that long-term impact's being delivered. One, because you're meeting that moral imperative of working with the public sector, but actually you're going to have great evidence to deliver social value in future contracts, both for that local authority and further apart. But I think for me it's just that having a kind of strategic social value, understanding priorities, measuring what matters again, but rather than just looking at social value per contract, looking at social value partnership with that organisation. For me, we see great examples of that working hugely well, and it tends to really benefit the contractor in a long-term way, because they want to work with them, because they'll see them as a trusted partner who can can help them maximise the impact within their area.
Thanks, Michael. And the last one, going back to Nina, directly at Salford. So Marlene Botang again says, you mentioned that Salford City Council local plan mandate the submission of a social value plan? Is this above and beyond an employment as a skills plan, or is it a replacement of an ESP? And the question's up there for you.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Marlene, for the question. So it's a replacement of an ESP because the social value action plan contains commitments and a strategy and a plan beyond employment and skills across the full range of social value, different elements, community, environment, skills, jobs, and well-being. So it's a separate action plan. What I would say is, if you want to know more about the planning policy, my colleague Claire and myself are going to be talking at a session tomorrow lunchtime around the Excellence in Planning Award that we won last year and what we've done since then. So if anyone is interested in that, please join us tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you, Nina. That concludes our session today. I want to thank all the panel members, and particularly Nina, well done. You came back from that technical. Day 2 tomorrow. Look forward to either speaking with some of the receptionists on this call today, and then in person on Thursday. So real action-packed 2 days ahead. Thank you all for joining us today. Take care. Good evening.